Imagine leaving your cave before sunrise. You follow an animal through a forest, cross a river, and climb a ridge. Hours pass. Then the sun begins to fall. The landscape suddenly feels enormous. The cave is somewhere behind you. Your family is waiting. Today, you'd reach for your phone. You'd open a map, check your position, and follow a line home. But 20,000 years ago, none of that existed. No roads, no signs, no GPS. So how did you find your way back? The surprising answer is that you probably didn't need to memorize a map the way we imagine one. You learned the world itself.
For a hunter-gatherer, getting home was not a minor inconvenience. The place you returned to could mean shelter, fire, food, tools, and family. And navigation was part of everyday survival. Modern research gives us a clue about how such navigation works. Humans can recognize landmarks, remember the relationships between places, follow familiar routes, and estimate how far they have traveled from a starting point. These systems can work together. So imagine the landscape around your cave. A particular cliff, a riverbed, a ridge with a distinctive shape, a group of trees. None of these things is a sign, but after seeing them again and again, they become part of your knowledge of home. And this is where our modern idea of a map can be misleading. We imagine a bird's eye diagram, a cave here, a river there, a path connecting them. But you don't necessarily need that. You might simply know, follow this path until the ground rises, cross the stream, keep the ridge on your left, then the valley opens, and somewhere beyond it is home. Contemporary research on Evenki hunters and herders offers a striking example of how sophisticated wayfinding can work without constantly maintaining a complete survey-style mental map. Their navigation can rely on networks of paths, hydrological knowledge, place names, and practical experience with the terrain. The important idea is simple. You don't always need to know exactly where you are. Sometimes, you only need to know what to do next. But what if the route is less familiar? Then landmarks become especially important. Humans are remarkably good at using environmental features to orient themselves. A landmark can tell you where you are. It can tell you which direction you're facing. And it can help you connect your current position with places you remember from before. For an ancient traveler, a mountain wasn't just a mountain. Its shape could tell you where you were. A river wasn't just water. It could form a boundary. A valley could narrow the possible routes. A familiar rock formation could confirm that you were finally heading in the right direction. The landscape was full of information. There was another tool, your own movement. Humans can estimate displacement from a starting point using what researchers call path integration, sometimes described as dead reckoning. Your body keeps track of movement. You travel in one direction, then another. You turn. You continue. But there's a problem. Small errors accumulate. The longer you travel, the less certain your estimate becomes. That is why landmarks are so useful. they can correct your sense of where you are. Your body estimates the journey. The landscape checks the estimate. Together, they become much more powerful. Now, imagine what happens when you live this way for years. You stop seeing a forest as thousands of identical trees. You notice the slope of the ground, the direction of a river, the shape of hills beyond the trees, the places where paths naturally form, the sounds of water, the difference between familiar and unfamiliar terrain. Modern research on traditional foragers shows just how much navigational knowledge can be embedded in environmental experience. Wayfinding can involve route networks, waterways, landscape categories, and detailed knowledge accumulated through repeated movement. What looks empty to an outsider can be filled with information for someone who knows it. And that knowledge did not belong to one person. It could be learned. Children could follow adults. Hunters could learn routes from experienced members of the group. Important places could be remembered and discussed. Over generations, knowledge of the surrounding landscape could become part of the culture. Researchers studying forager societies emphasize that wayfinding is deeply connected to survival. Finding food and water, reaching shelter, avoiding hazards, and moving through large territories. So, navigation was not a special trick performed when someone became lost. It was something people practiced simply by living. And this changes the question. Perhaps the mystery isn't, how did ancient humans magically find their caves? The better question is, how different would your own brain become if your survival depended on noticing where you were? Think about your daily journey. You may remember almost nothing about it because your phone remembers for you. Ancient people did not have that option. The information had to stay with them. Routes, landmarks, water, terrain, memory, experience. And sometimes, when the environment allowed it, cues from the sky could provide additional directional information. But there was no single universal ancient navigation system. There was a collection of skills. This is why the image of the helpless, wandering caveman is misleading. The evidence does not tell us exactly how every Paleolithic person navigated every landscape, but it does tell us that human navigation is built around powerful abilities for spatial memory, landmarks, route learning, and environmental orientation. And hunter-gatherer societies demonstrate how sophisticated these abilities can become when daily life depends on them. They did not need Google Maps. They had something much older: experience. So how did early humans find their way back to their caves? Not through one mysterious sixth sense. They learned the landscape. They remembered routes. They recognized landmarks. They used their own movement to estimate distance. They followed rivers, paths, terrain, and other environmental clues. And they inherited knowledge from people who had traveled those places before them. To us, a prehistoric landscape can look like empty wilderness. To someone who lived there, it could be as familiar as a neighborhood. The first map wasn't necessarily something drawn on a surface. It could be something carried inside the mind.